Let's go. Today I'm talking about the 1995 movie Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. As always, this review is going to be spoiler free, so if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe to this channel and like the video. So this is the 6th installment in the unimpeachable Halloween franchise, and it takes place 6 years after the last movie. In this one, Michael returns to Haddonfield again in hot pursuit of a recast Jamie Lloyd and her newborn baby, for which he and the mysterious cult that controls him now have evil plans. I thought after the last one that I was through the worst of this series. Halloween 6 consistently gets ranked higher in people's lists these days, and so I thought that it couldn't be worse than Revenge of Michael Myers. But oh boy, from the first shots of this movie, I realized that I was very wrong. Now, I'm not going to pretend that the previous sequels were all professional grade films, but at least they had a baseline level of competence and professionalism to them. This movie, on the other hand, is just straight up amateurish. It's rare that movies with this level of filmmaking even get to see the light of day. Within the first few minutes, there are literally shots that are warped because the aspect ratio is stretched vertically. They look like something off an old home video. So from the very beginning of this movie, I knew that I was in for something special. And the writing is just as incompetent as the cinematography. Now, there's two cuts of this movie. There's the regular theatrical cut, and then there's the unofficial producer's cut. Which I gotta say, just side note, that's the weirdest thing ever. Like, I think this might be the only movie ever where there's a producer's cut instead of a director's cut. But I digress. Apparently in the producer's cut, some of the complete nonsense in the plot is explained a little bit better, but the trade-off for having this movie make at least a little bit of sense is that it's half an hour longer, which sounds absolutely unbearable. Plus, I don't think any amount of cutscenes can save this absolute train wreck of a movie. But like with a train wreck piled up on the side of the road, on fire, with people dying inside and screaming to get out, I cannot look away. For much of this movie, I gotta admit, I was glued to the screen in abject disbelief at what I was seeing. This movie almost reaches that golden level of being so bad that it's good, and there are a lot of points where it is living in that territory. Like almost any scene with Paul Rudd, who is now known for playing Ant-Man, but here he gives an absolutely abysmal debut performance as Tommy Doyle, a dude who is so weird that he makes Dr. Loomis look normal and reasonable by comparison. My absolute favorite scene in the movie is where Paul Rudd goes to the train station and discovers Jamie Lloyd's baby inside a cabinet in the restroom. It's hysterical. I cannot believe how bad this movie is. Donald Pleasance is back, or at least some part of him is. It's famous film trivia that he died before this movie was even done being made, and it shows. He does not look healthy here. The fact that he did die is basically the only thing holding me back from just mocking his performance here because it's not good. This movie tries to give us a new family to focus on, complete with an annoying little boy to replace Danielle Harris, but it doesn't work. I never once care about whether these characters live or die, and I think that's exactly how the movie wants it. Most of the characters are just dominoes set up to be knocked down, and the few characters that are set up to live are boring as hell. Now, saying this movie is a far cry from the suspense work of the original is the understatement of the century, but they do try to scare us a little, or at the very least they try to be atmospheric. So they do things like constantly running a fog machine on this movie. Whenever it's dark, they try to find some reason to insert copious amounts of mist to add to the ambiance of the movie. But despite how much they abuse it, it's one of the few things that I actually kind of appreciate about this movie. The last one lacked any sense of atmosphere or scariness or really anything, so the fact that they at least tried to go for something here has to count for something. But let's get to the elephant in the room, the Cult of Thorn. This movie tries to explain why Michael is evil. Like I mentioned with the original, that was left open for interpretation. We had no idea why this average little boy would become a monster, and that's kind of unsettling. But they try to give an explanation involving a curse and an evil cult, and it's so bad that it makes me nostalgic for the good old days of Halloween 3. I love it. There's a scene in this movie where Dr. Loomis and the police go into this barn, and there's some hay bales, and on the side of the hay bales is like the rune symbol that Michael suddenly has tattooed on his wrist, and it's like burned into the side of the hay bales. And so Loomis is like, that's his symbol. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, Michael has never been identified with that symbol up until like 5 seconds ago. And did Michael really take time out of his busy schedule of killing unassuming Illinois residents to burn the symbol for this cult into the side of these hay bales? And how do you burn part of the hay without just burning the whole stack? Like, this seems like pretty delicate and time-consuming work. Sometimes it's just best to leave us with ambiguity, because once you try to start explaining this stuff, Michael starts looking very silly and very not scary. And that awful mask is not helping either. Like I mentioned earlier, I am doing a lot of laughing at this movie, but once we get to the third act, all that goes away. The third act is an incoherent, almost unwatchable feat of stupidity. There's absolutely no tension or excitement at all, and it ends on a baffling note where just nothing is explained. This is about the point in the series where you're going to start questioning your life choices, because this stuff is just bad. Yeah, this is a terrible movie. It has moments that are hilariously bad, but the fun just does not outweigh the pain. In trying to explain Michael Myers, this movie goes to places that are just so stupid it boggles the mind. Yeah, there is no need to see this piece of absolute garbage. In my opinion, it's a 2 out of 10.